You want to read more books in 2022? Well, I read over 100 in 2021, and let me share some tips and tricks with you guys on how to read more. Guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, hi, hello, my name is Carter. I film a lot of lifestyle, productivity, finance, and book content. I'm a huge book lover, and today I decided for a little bonus video, I'd sit down with you guys super quick, rapid fire, and give you guys all the tips and tricks I've learned on how to not only read more books this year, but to read books faster and still understand them, because there truly is like a science to it, and there's really great tips and tricks that can help you either stay focused on reading, read quicker, and still retain more, and just overall read more books. I get so many DMs asking how I read books so quickly and how I set such big reading goals and accomplish them. To give you guys some perspective, last year I read about 110 books, and this year I am hoping to read about 150. So without further ado, honestly, let's just jump into it. I even moved my bookshelf over here to be like a cute little backdrop for today's video. Let's split this video up into two categories. There's going to be just like easy, simple tips and tricks to help you guys read more, stay focused, and then there's gonna be like the actual like training techniques that I've like developed over the years. And I just want to say that some people are just naturally fast readers. I'm definitely one of them. I always have been. I mean, I was quite literally 7 years old and reading Harry Potter and understanding it. So some people are just born a faster reader, but that doesn't mean that you can't develop those skills. So let's jump into it with the easy tips and tricks, things you can do in your everyday life that don't require practice and kind of like conscious effort. So the first one is pretty obvious, but I feel like it's something people don't do, and that is to pick a genre you enjoy. When I first started getting back into reading, I tried to get into like the fantasy kind of books because that's what everyone at the time was reading, and I could never finish a book because it didn't interest me. So it might take some trial and error, especially if you're getting back into reading, but Book Talk is a really great resource to find good books to read and genres that you like. And coming from someone who loves really smutty romance, I'm like just not ashamed to even say that anymore because it's what I enjoy reading. And at the end of the day, you have to enjoy the content that you're reading. So if you don't enjoy thrillers, don't read them. If you enjoy reading smutty romance like me, read it. Don't be ashamed of it. Read the books that you love, because at the end of the day, reading is a form of self-care, and you can't really participate in self-care if the act is not something you enjoy. So I think some of these are pretty obvious, but the second one is to read more. It kind of speaks for itself. The more you read, the better you get at it. So you honestly just have to start by picking up a book and making the effort to find a little bit of time every day to read. And once you get back into the habit of reading, it'll obviously get easier and quicker and whatnot. Reading, like everything else, is a skill that takes time to develop, so the more you do it, the better you get at it. Next is to not set an unrealistic goal. Obviously, if you're just getting started out with rediscovering a love for reading, don't set a goal of 100 books a year when you can barely finish one a month right now. Set an attainable goal, but that still requires you to work a little bit more for. So for example, if you're currently reading one book a month and that's comfortable for you, maybe push it to 2 a month, but don't push it to like 5 or 10, because obviously, you know, you're going to get defeated and you're going to stop. But start by reflecting on kind of what your current reading status is, how many books you can read a month, if you want to keep it at that, or if you want to push yourself to read more. Like I said, if you're doing 1, maybe push to 2, but don't push to 10, because that's just like a huge jump. It's like saying I don't work out at all, but I want to work out 5 times a week. It's just a little too unrealistic to start with. As you read more, you can set higher reading goals, but just be patient with yourself and kind of start small. Okay, this one people might not agree with, but if you don't enjoy a book, don't force yourself to finish it. I feel like all the times I forced myself to finish a book ended just on a bad note, and it's ended with me in a book slump, and not a good book slump. Okay, if you guys don't know, a book slump is basically when you read a really amazing book and afterwards you just like can't get into any books because that book was so good. For example, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. But I feel like there's also the bad book slump. So a few times I've forced myself to finish reading books. I've gotten into like a bad book slump where I just like don't even want to read because the book was so not great in my opinion. And of course, if you don't love a book, especially if you're just starting out, do not finish it. I know some people won't agree with me on this, which is why I always suggest people that are getting like right back into reading to maybe pick a book that has like really great reviews, or start at the library. That way, if you're getting a book and you don't finish it, you don't feel guilty that you bought it. But yeah, just my opinion. I just, especially if you're getting back into it, would not force yourself to read a book you don't enjoy. So next is to borrow reading time from something that's less important. A lot of people DM me and are like, how do you find the time for reading? Like, I don't have the time. And you really have to sit and evaluate your day and think, how many hours do I scroll on TikTok? How many hours do I watch TV? How many hours do I just like lounge around and do nothing? And you kind of have to figure out if reading is a priority to you, where you're going to pull from that other time. So something I started doing last year was I would scroll on TikTok aimlessly for hours at night, like 3-4 hours. It was not good. And so instead, as soon as I get into bed, I put my phone out of reach and I will read a book instead. And so those 2 to 4 hours that I was spending scrolling on TikTok, I'm now spending reading. And you just have to learn where you can kind of pull time from other places and use your time better if you really want to start reading more. Next is just to have a distraction-free reading environment. Part of reading more involves not being distracted, and this kind of will fall also into my next set of tips, which is like training your mind. But having a distraction-free environment is really important, especially when you're first getting started back into reading. So whether that's at bedtime, when you wake up, when no one's in the house, just find a distraction-free environment as best as you can, because that will help you kind of stay focused and finish the book strong. The next is to change your mindset. Obviously, if you're trying to get back into reading and you're thinking like, oh, I have to read because everyone's doing it, first of all, don't do it because you're not going to enjoy it. Second of all, if you think of reading as like, oh, it's something I have to do, you're not going to enjoy it. So change your mindset. It's like working out. Change it to something I get to do. I am grateful I get to read. I'm grateful I have the time in the morning or at night to read, instead of thinking like, oh, I have to read before bed. You know what I mean? So the next one is having books on standby. This kind of works in 2 ways. So your current book, so if you have a Kindle, bringing your Kindle with you places. If you have a physical book, I carry my book literally around the house. So when I wake up in the morning, I bring my book downstairs and I make a coffee and then I put it on the couch with me. And then like throughout the day, I carry my book around, and then at night, I'll bring my book to bed with me. So that's there when I want to read it, so that you're kind of more wanting to read because it's right there, instead of being like, oh, I have to go get my book upstairs. And the second way you can interpret that is having your next book ready to go. So I find when I've picked out my next book, it makes me more likely to get through this book, especially if it's something I'm really looking forward to. More of like training tips, because there are actually ways that you can train your mind to read faster, and I'm going to take you guys through some of the things that I do and that I've kind of taught myself over the years. Disclaimer for this section that these are things that I do. Some people might not agree with them, but I just want to share them with you guys in case you find any of them useful. First is to skim and scan. So when I read, I don't literally read word for word on a page. I skim and scan the page first. The first few chapters of a book, I don't do this. I try and read more word for word, but when I get into a book, since I'm familiar with the plot, the characters, the development, the setting, I can skim and scan instead of reading word for word. And especially with like romance and thrillers, I'm scanning for dialogue and scanning for like key development in the plot. This might not work for everyone, but this is something that's truly been super helpful for me to just read quicker. And when I say read quicker, I still retain like the whole plot of a book. Like I could tell you every book I've read, what happens in it. Like I'm not saying that I speed read a book and I don't remember what happened in it, but skimming and scanning has truly made such a big difference. Okay, the next is a bit harder, and it's something you have to train yourself to do, but that is to not sub-vocalize. So if you guys don't know, sub-vocalizing is basically when we read and we say the words in our head, which is a very common thing that a lot of readers do. And if you see me looking, it's because I'm looking at my computer. I wrote down all the points. Basically what happens is when you're reading and you're saying the words in your head, you're slowing down your reading into a speaking speed. Our brain and our eyes can process a lot faster than that, so it's something you have to train your brain to do. There's some really great YouTube videos on there. I'll find yourself doing this. A few tips I have are just to be conscious of it and stop it when it's happening. You can use your finger to skim and scan text, which kind of helps break up your brain reading or speaking into your mind. Gum, having ambiance music on to distract you in the background, that helped me a lot. This is actually something I taught myself, and so I pretty much always have ambiance music on in the background or something on in the background, because that helps me focus on the music and not speaking the text in my head. You can apparently press your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and that really helps as well. I've never tried that, but that's a common tip I've heard. Anyways, the next one is to read phrases and not words. So when I read a page, I put pretty much like, I don't know, like a line together instead of reading word for word. Eye span is really cool. Actually, this is like the psychology major in me coming out, but your eye span is actually almost 9 words, which is about pretty much a sentence. So your eyes can see a whole sentence at once and not just word for word. I just take a chunk of text and not individual words and like read and process that, if that makes any sense. Okay, and then the last one I have for you guys is to not reread. I feel like this is something that a lot of us are guilty for. I do it as well. But one of the biggest time suckers is just rereading words, pages, paragraphs, etc. And that's when I know it's like time to put the book down, because you're just gonna keep doing it. So pretty much I will read the page and move on. And if I read the page and I find myself rereading it, I put the book away because clearly I'm not focused enough to keep going. I think it also depends on what kind of books you're reading. I'm obviously reading suburban thrillers, romances, things that are pretty easy to understand. They don't use huge words, maybe like fantasy or nonfiction or science books. So I think it's a lot easier said than done depending on the genre that you read. But I definitely think that like I read it once and I move on. I'm not a rereader, and that helps me save a lot of time as well. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this fun little bonus video. If you guys have any other tips and tricks that I didn't mention, comment them down below. I would love to know, or maybe let me know what your favorite book is, what book you're reading, or your reading goal. Let's just start like a big reading section in my comments. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope if you're trying to read more in 2022, this was helpful to you guys. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to give this video a big thumbs up. It helps out my channel so much, and it lets YouTube know that you are enjoying it. Subscribe if you haven't already either, because we're getting really close to 40K, or I don't even know when this is going up, but when I'm filming this right now, I'm at 38.5K. And I film, like I said, a lot of lifestyle, productivity, book, finance content. I upload 3 times a week. My goal with having this channel is to just bring raw, unfiltered life in your 20s onto the internet, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!